Hi there, this is David and welcome to the top 10 worst JRPGs of 2023. This has been a grandstanding banger year for JRPGs, I've gotta say. We've gotten some great games, but with the good always comes the bad. And here I want to go over 10 brand new, really bad games. And the reason why I say brand new is because earlier I put out a video where I went over the top 5 best games and top 5 worst games of the year. So I don't want to go over those worst games that I already did. So here you will not be seeing Another Crusade, Redemption Reapers, Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters, Final Fantasy VII, Ever Crisis, or Loop 8. They may be absolute abominations, but I've already covered them. And I have 10 more that I really need to roast. And hey y'all, if you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe for some more top 10s, reviews, and news, and also hit that like button for the ratio. And also, I am selling these shirts for a limited amount of time, only until the end of the month. So if you like them and you want to pick them up for you or your loved one, please be sure to do so. You can get it in a baseball tee or a regular t-shirt. And now with that, let's go ahead and get into these horribad games. We're going to be kicking off this list with Forspoken, everyone's favorite game, released in January for the PS5 and PC. Personally, I enjoyed Forspoken for what it was. I had a good time with it. But at the same time, it only took me like 12 hours to beat it, and I felt that it could have just been so much more. I'm also aware that it was incredibly divisive, and yeah, the heroine isn't exactly the most likable protagonist I've ever seen in my life, but the real reason why it's on this list is because of how much damage it inflicted upon Square Enix itself as a company. Not only did the Luminous Studio shut down after this colossal flop, but it caused Square Enix to lose a ton of money, which they're still recovering from. Square just really needs to learn to listen to their fans. And you know what? Maybe on second thought, I should put this on the best list because maybe, just maybe, Square might learn a thing or two after this colossal failure and then go back to the basics, back to what the fans want, and create some classic turn-based RPGs. But then again, that would require Square to actually reflect upon their failures and learn something. And we just can't have that now, can we? Number 9. Eternights, released in September for the PS4, PS5, and PC. Here we have yet another overhyped disaster, and some people are still defending it, but I don't get why. Yeah, I know that it was made by a single developer. I've heard that ad nauseum, but I don't care. A bad game is a bad game, whether one person makes it or 1,000 people make it. And honestly, what excuse does this developer have whenever Chained Echoes was also created by one developer? And that was like one of the best games of last year. So people can quit with their crying and quit with their excuses defending this shitty frickin' game. The whole gist is that you get to jump between somewhat kind of maybe enjoyable data mechanics. Well, at least they're kind of maybe somewhat enjoyable whenever they're not ridiculous and perverted. And then after that, you dungeon crawl through the darkest hallways that you've ever seen in your entire life, combined with some quick time hell. I swear, if you want to do anything here, you need to pull off a quick time event. Add to that the ridiculous difficulty and endless button mashing, and you have disappointment all wrapped up in a nice, neat 8-hour package. Woohoo! Number 8. Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn, released in November for the PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC. Don't get me wrong here, don't get it twisted. I loved Tales of Arise. In fact, it was like my best game of the year back in 2021, but this Beyond the Dawn DLC that came out of nowhere should have just stayed nowhere. I mean, like, now you can get the game itself for literally $5, and this DLC package costs $30, and that's half the price of the original price of the game, so you would think that it would have roughly half the game's content, right? Wrong! Let me tell you what this pretty much is. It is a billion fetch quests and one dungeon. There's no new content here. Do you all remember White Knight Chronicles 2, where you kind of just like went through the first game but like backwards? Well, this DLC is essentially that. It's just a boring rehash of the same crap, but with bad hairstyles added in for good measure. Number 7. Cry Machina, released in July for the PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and PC. let me pitch a game idea to you. I'll be the developer, and y'all tell me what you think about it. You'll take 3 obnoxious girls who hate humanity and have all the personality of cardboard. Let's give them pink eye and have pus oozing from their eyeballs, and then let's set them off to restore humanity, even though, they all hate humans for some reason. Then, let's make all the stages be action-packed, but also have them look exactly the same. Throw in some Dark Souls difficulty just for the lulz, and then, to decompress between those stages, let's have them throw little girly tea parties while they chat and gossip about the most inane stupid shit you've ever heard of. And yeah, let's make those tea parties mandatory too. I can just imagine all their pus dripping down in their tea cakes while they eat. It's vomitrocious. I mean, give me a break. It's so disjointed. It's like the developers didn't even know what they wanted to do. Is it an action RPG? Is it a visual novel? Is it a lesbian harem? Who knows? Number 6. Monster Menu Scavenger's Cookbook, released in January for the PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. This one is kind of a bit of a strange bird. It's a dungeon survival strategy RPG where you collect ingredients and materials while you dungeon crawl and beat up monsters. The goal is to grab ingredients and prepare meals, which will allow you to survive long enough to find your way up to the surface. And the story is basically that you enter some sort of noob dungeon, but it's not all that noob friendly because you become lost in it, and then you're in danger of dying of hunger and thirst around every single corner. So you have to make your way to the exit before you succumb to that starvation. It's really odd, and it tries to do too many things, but it doesn't do any of them well. And honestly, if you just want to play a roguelike that released this year, then just play Silent Hope. It's so much better. Number 5. Sword Art Online Last Recollection, released in October for the PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC. God almighty, what did I do to myself? This here was my first introduction to the Sword Art Online games, and I've heard of them for many, many, many years, but I also always heard really, really, really bad things about them. However, this game was created to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the series, and it was going to be the culmination of the franchise too. So I thought to myself, oh, this is probably just going to be the best one. But I thought wrong. People always told me how shitty these games were, but nothing prepared me for this. I mean, you're supposed to be able to explore in an RPG, right? You can't here. There was no deviation from your path at all. It is completely on rails. Then, all of your skills are unlocked right from the get-go. So there's no real progression, and leveling up just seems completely pointless. So there's no real reason to grind, but the enemies chase you down like homing missiles, so you're always battling. The graphics just look like shit, and the controls suck, and the whole thing just feels like filler and a waste of time. Number 4. Tales of Symphonia Remastered, released in February for the PS4, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Maybe I have a personal vendetta against this game. I don't know. But I cannot be the only one who is just sick to death of this one particular Tales game constantly getting remastered for every single console on God's green earth, while every other Tales game is just completely ignored. It's like that meme where the games are just drowning. I mean, the PS3 version was perfectly fine, and it came with the sequel too. Then there's a Steam version, and that thing's on sale for $5 all the time. So that really just does beg the question, who was this game made for? And why do they keep on remaking it? And why does every single remake just seem to get worse and worse and worse? The loading time and the textures actually look worse than they did back on the GameCube, not to mention the constant ridiculous crashes that happen all the time, as well as the bugs and the glitches that it's just riddled with. I mean, come on! Quit with this stupid cash grab and localize the other Tales games. Number 3. Mugen Soul Z, released in September for the Nintendo Switch. Okay, let me just level with y'all here. If you're out there and you want some half-naked anime girls, there's plenty of them that you can find online for free. I promise you, you don't have to spend money on this shitty game to find that. It's out there, free for the taking. Anyway, if for whatever reason you are still hellbent on playing this game, it is a sequel to the first Mugen Souls, which is also a complete dog shit game in its own right, and it features cookie-cutter anime characters, tons of juvenile sexual innuendo, incredibly long cutscenes that just explain nothing, and a completely disjointed storyline and awful battle system. All this wouldn't be too terrible if it was maybe 10 or so hours, but my god, does this thing overstay its welcome. I will say this though, in its favor, it is better than the original Mugen Souls, but that ain't saying a whole hell of a lot. Number 2, Tower of Fantasy, released in August for the PS4 and 5. In a world with Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, actually good free-to-play mobile games, who in their right mind would want to play a bad one? Especially a fragrant knockoff of them that literally might as well just say, "Hey scrub, hand over your wallet, because you ain't going nowhere past the intro till you fork over all your money." I mean, yeah, the world is massive and it looks gorgeous, but looks aren't everything, and they're definitely deceiving here, as the story is just disjointed, and if you don't play every single day and take part in every single event, you're going to be left behind with the quickness. And then quite literally, the only way to be able to catch up would be to spend that hard-earned cash. And that right there, folks, is why this is so high up on my list. I am sick of the cash grabs. And finally, number 1, Crimson Tactics, The Rise of the White Banner, released for the PC in September. Oh wait, you haven't heard of this hunk of junk? Well, consider yourselves lucky, because in my line of business, I hear about them all. And unfortunately, I'm roped into playing quite a bit of them as well. But it's really sad when the development team releases an unfinished product as a full, final product. But this was also kind of stuck in development hell, and man oh man, it shows. In fact, the developers were going to release this as a full game, but then they ended up being like, oh, that's going to take too much time and effort, and we can't have that, so instead we're going to split it into multiple parts in order to milk you for as much money as humanly possible. But with how poorly this was received, I can't imagine anyone wanting to buy a sequel. It is filled with bugs, and even the fastest speed option still makes the battles slow as molasses. And also, mages just suck because of the MP system, and your main character is as bland as a rice cake. I mean, you play strategy RPGs for mature storylines and tactical combat, not for cardboard cutout characters and unbalanced gameplay. So that's it for the top 10 worst RPGs of 2023. And don't forget, if you want to hear about even more terrible RPGs, that is, 5 more of them, please be sure to check out the link in the video description for the top 5 best and worst RPGs of the year. And if you like what I do here over on the channel, please head on over to the Patreon to sign up for early access to my videos and behind the scenes photographs. The link to it is over in the video description. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.